Hi, everyone. It's Ken Rakowski. Welcome to Metal Connect, where we get to spend time with one of our guests from the weekend and really dive into what's going on with the way they think, how they run their business, and really what empowers them to move forward. I am honored this week to bring all of you somebody that everybody loves. Everybody. Joe Polish is joining us from the Genius Network. And first thing, Joe, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you hanging out with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Great to be here.
Let's just start right away. Are you Joe Polish of the Genius Network, or are you Joe Polish and Genius Network is just one of the many things that you've created?
Yeah, it's just one of the many things that I created. And I tend to use Genius Network, even before I ever called it a group, as a way to think about handling any problem, any challenge, any opportunity. One thing I say to people is that any problem in the world can be solved with the right Genius Network. I even think of metal as a Genius Network because you got a bunch of people with capabilities and skills and resources and everything personally, professionally. And so, you know, in order to have a Genius Network, which is literally groups of relationships of people that can solve problems, help you reach opportunities, help you in any area of your life, you have to be a Genius Networker and you have to do Genius Networking. So networking, what people don't like networking in the sense of it. So I don't think of networking like just go out and meet a bunch of people, have a bunch of followers. It's really being very thoughtful about who you have in your world and who you take advice from, because the most expensive information in the world is bad information. And there's a lot of people that dispense bad information, and there's a lot of free information that's very bad. And there's a lot of paid for information that's very bad. So that's how I think about Genius Network. It's one of many things that I do, but I tap into it for every area of my life.
Yeah, but people do associate you immediately with it. That's like your counterpart. Do you want to kind of separate from that, or are you pretty happy that's kind of be your legacy?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing for me is the work I'm doing with Genius Recovery, right? Which is the stuff with helping people with addiction recovery. And I need Genius Network in order to do many of the other things that I do for business. Like I have equity in 21 different companies. A handful that I'm the majority owner in. I'm 100% owner in Genius Network, and in Piranha Marketing and different businesses that I have. But I don't want Genius Network to be known for me. I want it to be known for the people in the group, and I would prefer that.
That's it. That's your answer. I would say that it's hard to detach yourself from it. Please don't take it wrong. It's almost like George Costanza and the guy that plays him in Seinfeld, right? You just can't remove it. You are going to be that forever. So I got to start the story real quick. So last night, for me, I'm in Dubai. I am hanging out with a guy that works with camels. So he does camel meat, camel milk, and we're hanging out. And I go, yeah, I'm gonna be sitting down with this guy named Joe Polish in the morning. They go, Joe Polish. Not just me loves him, but my 10-year-old son loves Joe Polish. I go, what do you mean? He goes, he follows Joe Polish. Matter of fact, he started his first mastermind a few weeks ago by following Joe Polish. He's 10 years old. He goes, oh my gosh, yeah, it would be an honor of mine just to say hi to Joe and tell him this. So we FaceTimed Joe last night as we're driving. And this guy, after he said hello to you, Joe, he was on cloud 9 the entire time. He goes, I can't wait to tell my son I talked to Joe Polish. You were as if you were a messiah to them. So what do you do to bring these people this great happiness that don't meet you physically? What are you doing virtually that connects people in such a powerful way?
That's a good question, because I'm not quite sure how his son, found out about me or what we do. We have Genius Youth. So I have young people that actually are the entrepreneurs' kids. So people that are Genius Network members, we have Genius Youth. And so we put out a lot of information to help young people. And I've spoken to a handful of groups. I mean, the youngest is, 5 years old and up, with one of my members that runs these youth groups all over the country. He's got literally tens of thousands of kids. And so he was teaching young people how to make their first sales. So I I was more nervous speaking to these kids though than adults. I mean, it's really weird because I'm like, what am I going to possibly say to them? But they love the ELF concept, the easy, lucrative, and fun versus hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. So it's kind of funny. So I talk about ELF with young people and they like it. But I mean, I think something I heard when I was in my 20s is be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you meet on the way down. So it tends to be my philosophy in life, where anyone that you meet, you want to leave them better off than they were before you showed up. So I tend to try to think of that way. You know, some people will it's like the rental car philosophy. Some people rent a car and they trash it. They, run over curves. They rent a house. They leave it, beat, holes in the drywall and whatnot. And my whole thing is leave someone and something better off than it was before you showed up. And if you operate that way in life, I think people will like you. I think you'll get further ahead. And I think it's just a respectable and responsible way to live. And I've not always been that way, of course. I mean, hell, I was a drug addict. And when I was, a young drug addict, I would sell drugs to support my drug habit. I was shoplifting in school. I mean, all kinds of stuff, and when I became clean and sober, I mean, if I was ever in a store and they didn't charge me for something and I noticed it, I would, even if it was something as like a, pack of gum, I would go back. You just, don't take things from people. Life gives to the giver and takes from the taker.
Let's do that. Let's go back to your lowest period in your life. What was that? When was that? What did that look like?
Most of my childhood. I mean, my mother died when I was 4. My mother was a former nun. She left the convent because she had gotten ill, and she met my father in church. They ended up getting married, and I've never heard my mother's voice. She wrote some of the very first books teaching children how to read using the phonetic method. And so my mother's books have taught millions of kids how to read. And my father, he was a locksmith, so he worked really hard. He didn't have access or even know-how on how to deal with the loss of my mother. So my father lived a very pained life. I have one brother who's 4.5 years older than me. And so growing up, a lot of physical and sexual abuse, abandonment. My father never remarried. I was, probably the biggest negative domino. I speak in things of like first domino. What's a person or life experience that changes the trajectory of your life in a good way or a bad way. So, when I was a kid, I was, being sexually molested, and I was paid money not to say anything. And so up to that point, I was already a shy, scared, introverted sort of kid. And my father, every 2 years, we'd get established in a town, and then he just, for whatever reason, he needed to uproot and go somewhere else. So my father could never find happiness anywhere. And so our entire childhood, we were just moving to different parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas, kind of like the Southwest. And I don't have very few memories I can even remember of good things as growing up. So in terms of what was the closest to dying, I started doing a lot of drugs around 16 years old. And I'd probably taken LSD 75 times before the age of 18. And I was snorting crystal meth and snorting cocaine. And then I eventually started freebasing coke. And I was getting high every single day, usually multiple drugs a day. And I'd wake up to get high, and I'd get high to go to bed. And, at my worst state, I weighed 105 pounds when I was 18. When you're a male and you're 5'10", as my height, you can imagine weighing 105 pounds. On average, I weighed about 120 pounds. I was super skinny, but there's one week where I had not eaten at all, maybe like chicken McNuggets and drinking alcohol. And I was just such a wreck. I look like a skeleton. And that was probably my lowest point. There was, I think the big thing that caused me to run away from that environment was I was living with my brother, and there's another roommate, and this guy was a drug dealer, and we're all, doing drugs. And so It's funny, people that just joined us right now, they're like, what the hell did I just walk into? So I'm telling a story about a couple of people just popped on. What's up, Mark? How you doing? And so I come to this apartment where I lived. It was like a condo in Mesa, Arizona. And this guy that was a roommate, he was going to court the next day for possession of drug charges, possession of cocaine. And when I walked into the condo, he was over the sink smoking coke out of a glass pipe. He was freebasing cocaine out of a glass pipe. And I knew he had to go to court in the morning. And I'm like, man, you probably should go to bed. This is not good. And I just go upstairs and I go to bed. And I wake up in the morning and I come downstairs and this guy is in a 3-piece suit over the sink, still smoking coke. He'd been up all night freebasing, sweating profusely. And he's like, my lawyer's outside. I gotta get out of here. And I'm just like, Jesus, this guy has been up all night doing coke and he's going to court for drug charges. And looking back, I was like, you're an idiot. I mean, what kind of, but looking back, that shows you that no addict wants to be in that position. I don't care who they are. That's where they're completely lost control of the ability to make a good decision. And so they go to court and they're just waiting, somehow they didn't throw him in jail yet. And about a week later, I am at this same condo with one of my friends watching TV. And this guy busts in the door with a can of lighter fluid and just starts screaming and spraying the lighter fluid all over the apartment, all over us. I've got long hair at the time and I've lighter fluid dripping down my head. And this guy's holding up a lighter saying, I'm going to fucking torch this place. And I'm trying to talk him down like, dude, put the lighter, because we're about to die. And this is shit you see in a movie. And this guy's just freaking out. And finally I talk him down. And at that point I was like, I need to get out of this place. And I was a wreck too. I mean, I was getting high every day. It was a bad time. And so I packed up whatever stuff I could, had this piece of crap Chevy Love pickup truck. If you can remember those trucks, they would Chevy Love LUV. And I drove to New Mexico and I just removed myself entirely from every relationship that I could buy drugs from, do drugs with. And I went and lived in a trailer in Las Cruces, New Mexico, with my father. And the first 6 months I was taking Tylenol every day. I mean, I literally just, I didn't go to rehab. I just went cold turkey and I had pounding headaches and I was sick and my body was a total wreck. And it took about 6 months for me to just, the physical just angst that my nervous system was such a wreck. And then I ended up, I got a job in New Mexico and I ended up getting a job selling gym memberships. And for the first time in my life, I started consistently working out because I never did sports in high school. My liking of sports was ruined by a sadistic little league high school coach. And so that's how I kind of got clean. And I went to New Mexico and I got a job there. Then I ended up meeting someone about a year later at the gym that ran a mental hospital. And so he offered me a job. And so I started working at this mental hospital and I would take the adult patients that were there for addiction. I would drive them to AA meetings, CA meetings, Cocaine Anonymous, and NA meetings, Narcotics Anonymous. And I would sit in on these meetings, never realizing how much impact that would have in my future life, because getting sober from doing drugs is only stage 1 recovery. Stage 2 recovery is dealing with the underlying issues that cause you to drink or do drugs or sex or gambling or gaming or workaholism or whatever the addiction is. And I'd never dealt with that stuff. So I still was like a dry drunk, but my core addiction was sex addiction, because when I was molested as a kid and paid money, it wired in my mind that sex is shameful and dirty unless you pay for it. And what ended up happening, everybody has an arousal template, which is whenever they're introduced to sex, either in a healthy or unhealthy way, whatever feels good, you end up desiring that. And every person has an arousal template, whatever they're into. And so because of the way that I was introduced to sex, I didn't know how to do intimacy. And so I ended up building a successful company. I mean, I'm skipping some parts here, but I was broke for a while. Yeah, but go ahead.
I said, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. I want you to think about the drugs you took. What was your favorite and what euphoria did it produce for you?
Boy, that's an interesting one. Definitely LSD. LSD is probably the most powerful experience I had back then. I mean, now, today, I mean, I'm the first person in the world to have brain scans, before and after brain scans of doing ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. And so ibogaine is the world's most powerful psychedelic. There's nothing about it that's really enjoyable. You have to go through hell in order to get to the parts that are kind of blissful. But I did that in 2015 in Mexico. I took a film crew with me and we filmed it. And then I filmed the interviews with Daniel Amen, who did the brain scans, and then a guy named Dan Engel, who's one of the top psychiatrists in the world, who uses plant medicines and psychedelics for PTSD, depression, and addiction. And so I kind of my own human lab rat now, because I'm a big believer in the proper use of plant medicines such as ayahuasca, psilocybin, ibogaine, very effective for opiates, MDMA guided therapy, things like that. I even was interviewed by U.S. News and World Report, and I actually had them put in an interview they did with me about trauma and opiates, the MDMA and ibogaine, which they never put in one of their articles before. So I'm a big believer that once a lot of these substances and plant medicines and psychedelics become legal, they're going to be one of the greatest breakthroughs with depression and addiction and trauma. But
but you're saying the psychedelics that you took after you were sober are your favorites?
Well, it's hard to say favorites, because I look at everything through the lens of addiction recovery, because so much of my world is there. So any form of getting inebriated or altering your consciousness or your mental apparatus has with it great potential and also great danger. So I'm not, a lot of my friends that go to Burning Man think they're doing spiritual experiences when they're just getting high in a camper, and in an RV. And I think, and I think a lot of people that call themselves shaman are incredibly dangerous, and they're leading people through very vulnerable situations. However, I've seen people's lives absolutely transformed in the right way. I mean, Timothy Leary was the first one that said, set and setting. So going into anything, it's the mindset that you're in when you're doing it, and it's the setting. So set and setting is really important for how you use substances and how you use psychedelics. I believe it's absolutely worth exploring, and I wouldn't just randomly prescribe it for everyone. When I was getting high all the time, hell, getting drunk is fun until it's not.
There's a reason why I'm asking this. People are going, why are you focusing on this? Is because you have to find a way to have a similar euphoric feeling or that type of sensation being completely clean and sober. So I'm wondering then, what do you do to replace that feeling of being drunk now? What is that tool that you do to always feel like, man, I feel drunk on top of the world, I feel great? How do you get drunk in a sober world?
Well, I think it's within the body, it's within connection. I think the ultimate feeling is flow. So getting into a flow state. And by the way, if you don't already know Stephen Kotler, who's written a lot of great work. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine. I mean, I'm happy to tell him to come on here.
You wrote Peter Diamandis' book.
Yeah, he's got a new book coming out called The Art of Impossible. And so getting into a flow state is really, I think, the ultimate thing. I'd much rather be sober than inebriated or buzzed today. I mean, I rarely drink. If I do any sort of substances, it's very, I've done ayahuasca 7 times, done it with Gabor Mate the first time, who's just this brilliant doctor in Vancouver, one of the greatest addiction minds, I think, on the planet. And I've done MDMA guided therapy 3 times. That's very powerful because it really it gives you a big dopamine hit, and it allows you to process things that you might not be able to without, what it does to you chemically. In terms of relying on a way to change the way you feel, it's interesting because everyone consumes something to change the way they feel. I mean, that when you take just substances, let's look at it from a positive versus a negative way. The number one killer in America from substances that people die from, anyone take a guess at what that is?
Sugar.
Exactly, sugar. More people die in America related to sugar than any other substance. And the second is tobacco. The third is alcohol. The fourth is opiates. And then, people probably are not dying from caffeine, but look at how many people they couldn't even function throughout the day without caffeine being part of it. So we're talking massive consumption. I think it's 25% of women in America are on some sort of antidepressant. So we are living in a world that, Mark probably knows a lot about this in terms of stats. We live in a world where there's just so much consumption to try to alter and change the way you feel. So that's the negative side of it. The positive, there's probably a lot to be said about the pyramids and about amazing works of art and writing that people were under the influence of something when it was done. And so the war on drugs, I don't believe drugs per se are bad. There's bad consequences to how they're done. I think the laws about the drugs are more dangerous than the drugs themselves, because you cannot punish pain out of people. And whenever you try to punitively treat someone that's misbehaving, then you have the criminal justice system treating addiction and depression instead of a more compassionate industry. So, one of my goals is to, whatever I can do to help change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share those with the world. So that's what I, have been setting up with educational platforms, just to get people to not look at these individuals as moral degenerates, but look at them as people that they were hurt in some way and they're looking for pain relief. Because Gabor Mate says, the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. And whenever you see pain in somebody's life, you're going to look for a way to self-soothe. I mean, staring at a phone for some people, looking at porn, gambling, watching Netflix. I mean, these are all different forms of entertainment and forms of pain relief. And people are, people want more woo and less ah. And when we have a lot of ah in your life, you're going to look for ways to, so if you're lonely, depressed, anxiety ridden, there's nothing wrong with wanting that to go away. It's just how you scratch the itch. So your thing was, how do you replace it? Exercise, yoga, meditation, breathing, those are all forms of it, but it's really about connection. Because if you're disconnected from yourself, you're going to be disconnected from others, and then you don't feel safe in the world and you don't feel good. It's like the Johan Hari line, the opposite of addiction is connection. And whenever you feel deeply connected, you don't need other shit. You're not looking for something to make you feel good. You feel good. You feel content, even when there's suffering, and the ability to, because life is a combination of things that work and things that don't. I mean, everyone here is probably the biggest breakthroughs that you had in your life, I would imagine, have come out of some adversity, some situation that nearly killed you, or not maybe physically, but maybe mentally, a breakup, a loss of a loved one, loss of health, loss of job. And so my thing is trying to find connection. I mean, if there's one word that I'm constantly striving, is how to be deeper connected.
It's one of my favorite words. So now let's switch to more on the professional side, because I learned about you, Joe, actually through Paula Abdul. So Paula was a really good friend, and she would always say, hey, I'm about to go to Arizona. I'm working with this thing called the Genius Network. And she would just go crazy about it. I think, wow, Paula, you're going to this, why? Well, I'm getting paid, but I'm also part of this incredible group. So I learned about it from her, but she didn't really give me all the details. What she told me was people pay an exorbitant amount of money to have exorbitant amounts of breakthroughs. That's what
Yeah.
she said.
Yeah.
And I want to understand, you're kind of at the top of the game. When people talk about the top of the networking world and mastermind, it's Joe Polish. It's you. Tell us real quick, when somebody would do a search on the Genius Network and one of the weekends, what would they find? How much does it generally cost to be part of the Genius Network?
Well, the Genius Network groups, it's $25,000 a year. Someone
Right.
criteria is, make from a financial standpoint, make a minimum of $1 million a year business. And then we do our best through the way that we have people fill out applications to flesh out reputation, givers, takers. I mean, I really want to have a group of givers and people that are not narcissistic, which is sometimes hard because people that are, have any sort of public persona, speakers, authors, performers, there's certain narcissism that comes with it. But the Genius Network group is $25,000, and then I have another group that's $100,000 a year. And
what's the difference between the 25K and the 100K?
We just charge them more money. Same shit. No, I'm kidding. So it's interesting. People, what I find now we have a lot of, well-known people that are in Genius Network and that I will have speak at Genius Network. A lot of people, I think they pay for not who's in the room, but for who's not in the room. And so a lot of the people that are in the 100K group, they want to scale their marketing. But what's funny about it is we definitely teach them great marketing. I mean, I'm known for being a marketer. It's where I've spent many years honing the skills of marketing. And we certainly will teach people lots of different ways to make money because, people have to justify why they're spending that much money to be part of a group. But what I really do is we sell people what they want, which is more money, better clients, New York Times bestsellers, strategies. And we do our best to give them what they need, which is align yourself with people that are aligned with you. Create things that are ELF, easy, lucrative, and fun. Get rid of things that are half, hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating. And set yourself up to not just make money, but don't lose it. It's interesting. I was on Metal, on Saturday, and you did that survey about, how many people have enough money to last for a week, for a month, for a year, whatever it was, and then indefinitely. And I was looking at I think it was 17% of the group had indefinitely, which is good. With money though, I've met a lot of people that they're really good at making it, but they lose it or they make dumb decisions. So the themes of what I focus on is health, wealth, and ELF. So health is not just physical, but mental health. That's why I smuggle in all this addiction stuff because entrepreneurs, so many of them are addicts. And it's easier to go to a seminar or join a group than it is to maybe go to a therapist and say, my life is a little fucked up. It's like a softer way of seeking help and connection, and it's more socially acceptable. But I know damn well that every person has some area of their life where they're completely fucked up and they don't know what they're doing. And sometimes it's controlling them. And so being able to bring people together and say, hey, we're going to teach how to make money. We're going to teach all these strategies, and we do. I mean, we have to provide that because it's part of the deal. But I also want them to connect with each other. So what started out as a mastermind group is really a connection network. And so people come there for the right who's, because with the right who, they bring the how with them. So, and when you're a really smart person, when you're a really successful guy, I mean, think about it, Ken. I mean, you could sit in a coffee shop by yourself with a napkin and come up with better ideas than you can go into many seminars, right? Because you spent your life learning stuff. You know a lot of people, and that would account for most of the people that I know that are in metal, right? They're smart people. So when you're and they're seeking it, they're looking for it, because some people are too cool for school. And I don't like people that are too cool for school, that aren't very coachable. Anyone that's a master in anything doesn't think, so the thing we've said for a long time is I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be in a room where everyone's getting smarter. And the more that I can curate it that way, then it becomes a really helpful
place, and we all need sounding boards. I mean, look at like for the discussions I've been in with metal, it's an incredible sounding board for people to just talk through stuff, right? And when you are ambitious and you're achievement oriented, everyone that's not thinks you're crazy. And the people that work for you, when you're running a company, they don't have the risk-taking sort of personality and behaviors of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is a person that solves problems for a profit. They get paid based on their ability to produce a result. So in Genius Network, it's all about results. It's not about meetings. And so we constantly reinforce that. Yeah, we're going to have meetings, but I also say to everyone, no one wants to join a group. Nobody wants to read a book. Nobody wants to attend webinars or online courses or any of that stuff. What people want is they want results. And in order to get results, they need capabilities in their life. So how do we bring capabilities to people to help them solve what it is they want? And Genius Network is very Socratic. I don't ever pretend to know what success is for somebody else. I mean, who am I to say this is what success is? I can talk about what I think it is for me and what's important to me, but we really make it about the person. We ask them, what do you want solved? What do you need? We ask them things like Dan Sullivan, who's been in my group for a decade. He's the founder of Strategic Coach, and he's the highest referring person to Genius Network. And I'm the highest referring person to Strategic Coach. I pay to be in his group. He pays to be in mine. None of it's an affiliate thing. We just like each other, right? And we're really dear friends. And so part of it is, it's like, you know, what can I bring to the group that helps build a better entrepreneur? Because if there's anything, you know, the two groups that I want to be a hero to is I want to be a hero to entrepreneurs, and I want to be a hero to people that struggle with addiction, because I know what the suffering of addiction is like. And I like achievement entrepreneurs. Lifestyle entrepreneurs kind of bore the shit out of me. I like people that want to do shit in the world. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with having a great lifestyle. I'm not saying that. It's just, if your thing is like, you know, I'm done growing. I like growth-minded people more than I like status. You know, if the focus is on growth, then you're going to be helpful. You're going to create value. If the focus is on status, it's all about, let me see how famous I can be. Let me see how many people can follow me online. Let's, you know, let me get my fake self-esteem from, you know, how many people think I'm this wonderful person. And so, you know, my sense is the more famous somebody is, usually the faker they are. And not always, you know, there's people like Jordan Peterson, who I think is a brilliant man and very thoughtful. Even if someone doesn't agree with him, there's no doubt that this is a very intelligent person who's not some skilled marketer, but he has a massive following and keeps growing because of his, you know, what he puts out into the world and what he says. And so there's ways to be famous without, you know, rigging it. But I'll tell you, I mean, you've met enough famous people. When you deal with people that are addicts, I get invited into rooms and into people's lives that because of the work I do with addiction, man, if people only knew what was going on in the lives of some of the people that they admire and they look up to, it's not all sunshine and kittens. There's a lot of people that the world thinks are successful and happy that are just living tormented lives.
By the way, everyone, we're going to get to questions. Hang on for a second. We're almost there. How would you get a Jordan Peterson to be part of either a mentor or to go through the Genius Network program?
Well, here's the thing. So I haven't got Jordan Peterson yet. I have one of my who I actually introduced her to Sammy, Barbara Annis. She's in Genius Network. Barbara Annis is the top gender intelligence expert in the world, brilliant woman. And so she's been talking to Jordan. So, but you know, my whole thing, like I've had you know, a handful of billionaires and stuff that you know, have come to Genius Network and that I'm friends with. And part of it is, I mean, I just try to charm and disarm people. I don't ask anyone to do anything for me without creating value first. If it requires really vulgar humor and bad jokes in order to, you know, bond with somebody, I will do that. I think at this point, you get paid in the beginning of your career for what you do. And if you're really good at what you do, you start becoming known for who you are. And then you know, and so now I've done enough work to establish, you know, I've interviewed over 900 people at least for a minimum of an hour. I mean, I've got some very, you know, brilliant entrepreneurs and well-known people that I've interviewed. So I have a lot of people that say nice things about me. So it's not hard for me to get to most people that I want to get to. And I've got this weird ability to just try to, you know, create value on the spot, right? Some people are like, hey, let's go to lunch. And it's like, well, how about we do lunch now? Or how about we do lunch next week? Now, in the middle of a pandemic, a lot of these lunches are virtual, but it's, you know, I don't dick around. I mean, if I want to do something, I do it. And if I can't, I say no. I mean, one of the worst things to do, like right now, I'm going on a 1-year sabbatical next year, right? And so I'm getting between 200 to 300 text messages a day. And in my office, like in the last 2 weeks, 50 to 200 requests a day. Will you do an interview? And we have to say no to all of this stuff. And it pains me because I'm usually like, I've never had this level of requests, and I hate it because I want to say yes to, it bothers me psychologically because I try to, you know, be accommodating as much as I can. And there's some really amazing opportunities that are being presented to me too. And so I'm like AD&E, and that's one of the reasons I'm taking a sabbatical though, because I was like, wow, you know, you can have, if you have 1,000 options, you don't have any options, and you can get intoxicated by opportunities. And so I need to do a massive stepping back and saying, what the hell really matters and how do I focus on it? But the beauty with Genius Network is it has transcended me. I mean, I started it, I'm the catalyst for it, but I've now built enough really awesome people that are supporting each other. And when you have to think about what would happen if you're no longer there and you have a business that was really built around you, you know, some people just build businesses, other people build, you know, these personality businesses, and they become the leader of it. And you somehow create a ego that comes along with this. And one of the reasons I want to do I should say, not say you, I should say me, because I'm really speaking about me here. I really want to separate that from my life and how I make a living versus, you know, who I am. And I mean, it's a great exercise. If you have to go away for a month, even, you know, how would the company run? And we have been more creative. And I have a team of 14 full-time people that run Genius Network, and they have stepped up in ways that I could never even imagine. You know, I mean, my assistant Eunice, who's been my assistant for 25 years, Tim, who's worked for me for 20 years, Gina, who's worked for me for 17 years, I'm seeing them do things that I've never seen in the entire time that they've worked for me, simply because I'm stepping away, and they're like, they want the responsibility. And I never saw it and understood it until I did. And I mean, I think people really want to be challenged. And a lot of people that have people that work for them, I think they're afraid of what's going to happen if I'm not telling them what to do. And I heard it for years, let go. You know, I feel like I'm a terrible delegator. I want to kind of just control things. Well, I shouldn't say, I don't want to be in control. I want to be in charge. That's how I sort of approach it. I actually don't like control. I like being in charge, and I'm having to step away from that and let other people, you know, run the show.
So besides getting the right people, because the ones that are really passionate about what you do, that work with you, it sounds like they work with you, not for you. What kind of tweaks are you doing to your business that you feel is going to hopefully put it on cruise control where you're gone? Like, what 3 or 4 things are you doing that, you know, when you say, hey, I'm gone now, yeah, you got access to me, but try not to get access to me. What 3 or 4 things are going to happen that have never happened while you're there that are going to take place once you leave?
Okay. So one of the things that we're doing is I have a gal named Denise, and we are instituting where we're incentivizing our team members, not based on money that comes in, even though some of them are. We're incentivizing based on how happy the client experience is. And I learned that from a friend of mine, where instead of compensating someone for sales, you compensate them for when a Genius Network member has a phone call or a Genius Network has a meeting. And we do surveys at the end of every meeting. And we ask them, you know, how was it? And if the rating is high, they're going to be incentivized. So they're all working really hard to make sure that people really like them and are rating them. That's one thing that we're doing. Secondly, my buddy Cameron Harold, he used to be the COO for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and Brian Scudamore.
Actually, Cameron hooked us up. Cameron hooked us up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you know Cameron. And Brian Scudamore, who's a buddy of mine also, he's the one that's the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. One of the ways they built that company was they had a big vision. And so Cameron calls it a vivid vision. So we have a vivid vision that we have recently just written a whole new one on what is next year going to look like. So we're running it based on benchmarks and things that we're doing. Gino Wickman, who is the founder of EOS, he wrote a book called Rocket Fuel and Traction. Earlier today, I just sent a email to him and Sammy to have him be a guest on Metal. We use EOS is our system for the team members and stuff. And I'm trying to think, what else do we do other than, I'm just letting my team take projects and just do them and pick and choose which ones they want. And it's like a big skunkworks project. There's not all of it. There are certain things that we've just been doing for years and we know how to do it. I just give them a lot of autonomy to do whatever they want. And my company's set up as an ESOP. So it's an employee owned sort of organization. And if I'm not stupid with my money and nothing tragic happens, I don't need to work for money anymore. I've done well enough to where I've saved money and I'm not outrageous with how I spend stuff. I have zero debt. I own my building, I own my house. I don't owe money on anything. And I need a lot of money though, millions, for what I want to do with addiction recovery. So, that's why I have the motivation to keep, striving to do stuff. And I like money too. Don't get me wrong. People that say money isn't important, it's like, try living without it. Money's really freaking important. And people that say money can't buy happiness, that's really stupid, because I buy happiness all the time. And if you're, if you don't think money can buy happiness, you haven't given enough of it away, because there's a lot of people that you can change their life that can't afford medical bills, that are starving, that, are really struggling, and money solves problems that lack of money creates. So I give my team the ability to make money, and they have a pretty good opportunity because we're constantly sitting on a gold mine with all the cool stuff that's out there. So I'm trying to think
So
if there's anything else.
You go on sabbatical.
Yep.
And all of a sudden your team calls you up and you go, Joe, we don't need you right now. We're doing fine. And you hang up the phone and you go, yeah. Or do you go, wow.
I hope to God that happens. And I hope I am able to say, yeah, that is freaking awesome, and not be like, oh shit, I'm really important and I'm needed. And my whole identity is built around this Joe Polish character that everyone thinks is cool. And I'm cutting off relationships with people that I've known for 20 years that I've had to tell in the last couple of weeks, hey, you're still going to be talking to me. And I'm like, no, actually, no one. There's going to be like 20 people that will have my phone number. I just got a new iPhone today. My assistant Giselle went and picked it up. And, now I'm going to make the transition. I'm going to be shooting videos I'm going to set up a website called Joe's Sabbat. It's joesabbatical.com. We haven't set anything up there yet. And it's going to be a letter and a video and me explaining, like, if you want to know what the hell I'm doing and why, here's what's going on. But I haven't even planned my sabbatical. The only thing that I've planned is I'm going to spend a week doing meditation with Joe Dispenza at the beginning of the year we're going to meditate 6 hours a day for a week straight. And in that meditation, I'm going to try to work out of my nervous system all the crazy, drive that I have been working so hard for the last 30 years to do. And I'm going to set the stage with just trying to get my nervous system to calm down. Luckily, because of all the work I've done with recovery and hundreds of 12-step groups, I know a little bit about powerlessness. But I'll tell you, I know I'm going to have withdrawals, because there's going to be body in motion tends to stay in motion. And so I'm not going to be sitting around like an idiot. I'm going to be active. I'm just going to be active in music and art and health and recovery work. I'm probably going to do I'm going to do 12 steps again, but I'll probably do it in a different form of 12 steps, such as, you know, codependence or workaholism or some area that I've not done 12 steps in. I've done 12 steps in drugs. I've done 12 steps with sex addiction. So we'll, yeah.
I'm going to open up the chat now, guys. You got questions, you get to dive in. I'm going to first go over to Mighty Paul. Mighty Paul, who I've grown so close to. What a wonderful human being. All about giving and caring. So Mighty Paul, you got your first question. Go for it.
Do you think that going on the sabbatical is something that's going to reset your vigor and your work drive, or do you think it's going to allow you to pivot and move into another field, perhaps, or a different aspect of life?
Yeah, well, here's what I believe. And it's similar to when you're marketing to somebody. Like, I use a form of marketing called education-based marketing. I use a lot of direct response, which is copy and offers and headlines and guarantees and emotional copy and things like that. And when I was a dead broke carpet cleaner, I didn't learn marketing or do anything that I do today because I, you know, ever thought I would teach it to other people. I was a dead broke carpet cleaner living off credit cards, and I needed to survive. And so one of the first things I did, and this is going to answer your question. This seem like a weird way of answering the question, but it's, I created a consumer guide to carpet cleaning, and I had to figure out how to successfully sell something nobody wants to buy. And so I paid a copywriter $1,800 on a credit card. I didn't even have enough money to, you know, I was literally living on credit cards, trying to live out my entrepreneurial fantasy. And so I spent a month teaching him how to educate someone on carpet cleaning. So I created a consumer's guide. It said, read this guide and discover 7 questions to ask a carpet cleaner before you invite him into your home, 8 costly misconceptions about carpet cleaning, 6 mistakes to avoid when choosing a carpet cleaner, crawling critters and crud, a guide to the slime, grime, and livestock that's seeping, creeping, and galloping through your carpet, how to avoid 4 carpet cleaning ripoffs, which method cleans best, how to get your carpet cleaner to 100% guarantee their work, blah, blah, blah. So I had all these things. And what I discovered is, if you don't have a system for selling your services, you're always at the mercy of the consumer system for buying, which is always based on price. And so when they would request the consumer awareness guide, and this was before the internet even existed, I was doing this stuff in the early 90s. And what I found is that it's what people don't know that they don't know. And if you make them aware of it, then all of a sudden they didn't know there were 4 mistakes to avoid, or 6 costly misconceptions, or 7 questions to ask, until I shared that with them. So what I also learned is that whenever I pursue a goal, and I learned this from Dan Sullivan, if you're going to run a marathon, so over here is like 6 months from today, and here you are today, and the goal is to run a marathon. What happens is, maybe you quit drinking alcohol, you start going to bed early, you quit hanging out with certain friends, you quit eating pizza and shitty food. All these other things start happening off to the side because you made this goal, which is run a marathon, but the strategic byproducts end up becoming bigger than the goal. So my entire life is paying attention to the things that happen off to the side when I have the goal. So my goal of the sabbatical, no matter where I'm at in my current level of thinking right now, is going to change once I'm on it. And there's going to be all kinds of things that I don't know that I don't know. So there's things I'm going to try to do, but I'm really going to do them so that I can get the strategic byproducts out of it. So I'm as crazy as it sounds, I'm trying to go into this with not a lot of expectations. What I do know is that entrepreneurs that are too tightly scheduled cannot transform themselves. And I have been too tightly scheduled for quite a period of time. I have a great life. I do cool stuff, but I also suffer more than I want to. And so what I'm hoping for is that I have a sign on the wall. I wish I could turn the camera, but it's like this camera mounted. It says, be willing to destroy anything in your life that's not excellent. And so I am going on a journey to destroy the things in my life that are not excellent. And I'm going to unlearn as much as I'm going to try to learn something. And so I don't know if that answers the question, but
it does. Thank you. That was quite insightful, actually. Jesus,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, you know what happens is the smarter you get, the more hair you lose. So you guys are in the same smart club. Let me go to Ryan.
Hey guys. Hey Joe. Thanks for very enlightening talk. I've actually, done a little bit of work with Kotler and Rian, and I'm really interested in flow, and diving into that as much as possible. How to spend more time there, being efficient, effective, creative. And I'm a filmmaker. I'm a storyteller. That's how I cross paths with them. And I've definitely dabbled with my share of drinking too much, addiction, coming back from that dark area. And what I wanted to sort of ask you, and forgive me, because this is something that I'm trying to get better at, among other things, is in dabbling with psychedelics and things like that, not just in the recreational sense, but using them in ways that are beneficial, that are healing and stuff. It's fascinating to me. The niche that I've created in professionally has been to, as of the last few years, creating sizzles for people, whereby they sell shows, and I've done them for top chefs and Leonardo DiCaprio and people, and I'm pretty strong in this world, and this is something that's really interesting to me, and I feel like I have a good grasp on this, which has sort of been shunned and sort of pigeonholed as like either alternative, counterculture, which it was in the 60s, or people, there's and just recently a lot of like big money going into this world, but there isn't really a face to it. And I know that a lot of people dabble and whatever, and I've read some Michael Pollan and different people who are still fairly alternative. But what
Ryan, I want you to get to the question.
Okay, the question is, would you be interested in having a conversation about this later with me, to perhaps like help me facilitate getting the access to these type of people who are interested in this, in the attempt to bring it to other people in an altruistic way, and sort of be like, here's the science on this in an entertainment form, and create a sizzle and pitch it as a series.
I'm gonna step in. I know Joe will say yes, but he's gonna say no until he gets back.
Well, no, I mean, he absolutely was like, I'm not a bullshitter, and I appreciate that. I'll take a no. I'm just trying to get better.
Here's what I would say. Okay, so we got a Kara Chan who's on the line right here.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's Kara's awesome. I'm the godfather of Kara and his wife Renee's child.
We've been going back and forth in a text, and
well, first off, Kara has done interviews with some of the top leaders in psychedelics and plant medicines. He co-produced a film, Neurons to Nirvana, and he's interviewed Gabor Mate, who speaks very eloquently to this. We did a film together called Black Star, which won the Audience Choice Awards at the Sedona Film Festival. So that was the first film we did on addiction related to artists and stuff. So Kara can totally connect you. Michael Pollan, Andrew Weil, Paul Stamets, Rick Doblin at maps.org. I mean, maps.org is really what I would suggest to answer your question is, you want access to that entire world of the best thinkers, do a sizzle reel for free for Maps and help them just do stuff. I mean, Rick Doblin's been doing this since 1986. And he's really, really well connected. Prior to the pandemic, we were going to do an event at my office with Andrew Weil, who's a buddy of mine, and Paul Stamets, who's a friend, and Rick Doblin and Michael Pollan, who I haven't met yet, but we we're going to do it. And then the pandemic started. And so, but I would talk to Karen, and to Ken's point, when I come back from my sabbatical, happy to discuss this stuff.
Brilliant. I love it. When are you taking off?
January 1st.
Oh, awesome. Cool.
Yeah, but
He's gone.
Yeah, talk to Kara. Kara really is, and Kara's a brilliant, absolutely fucking brilliant filmmaker. He's talented as shit. He has a great eye for stuff. He knows how to create emotional, storytelling in video, and
I love it.
Not just video, but animation. I mean, Kara does a lot of videos. I like work with him and pay him to his company to do stuff, and they do some really cool. So
I'm
you guys
down.
would totally jam on it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you, Ryan.
Akira. Yeah, thanks.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Ryan. Let's go to CK. CK, go for it.
Hey, Joe. I've been following your work for the last, I don't know, 10 plus years or so, but I didn't really quite become a huge fan of you until I joined metal, and then how you present yourself in metal, how honest you are about your humanity. That I think that's super extraordinary. So if you can share with us a little bit about, I'm so curious, like how did you cultivate that muscle to be more and more open about just really the core of who you are?
Yeah, thanks. And I'm glad that hopefully what I say is helpful. And I like to think I want to encourage people. It came from really fucking my life up pretty bad, going out and being very disconnected. It's interesting that, people think of me as a connector when I grew up so completely disconnected from myself. And I was, addiction is looking for love in all the wrong places. And I was looking for love in many wrong places. I was trying to find it through, success and building a business and building, whatever I can build. And Janis Joplin had this interesting line where she said, she'd go out and perform, and she said, I'd go out and make love to 20,000 people, then I'd go back to my hotel room alone. And I had to have my heart ripped out of my chest quite a few times. I had to really put myself, thank God I never became a perpetrator. I was a victim of a perpetrator. And I spent a lot of my adult life, even though I became a millionaire before the age of 30, I spent a lot of my life in angst. And I think I just kept at it. I kept going to meetings. I kept trying to get through it. And finally, shit, man, I don't know the easy answer to it. It wasn't like this one thing. It was a series of a lot of stuff, and really learning that you can hear this line, but it's absolutely true. You're as sick as your secrets. And the things that you have the most shame and the most embarrassment about, that you just, silent battles are the hardest battles to fight. And I always try to caution people. There's a big difference between secrecy and privacy. People will come up to me and say, wow, you're really courageous for saying the stuff that you do and speaking openly about it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's courageous, or if it's like, I just really finally realized that's the only way to cleanse myself of the shit that I felt so terrible about. And when you start sharing things after doing the work, because I think some people do these Facebook confessionals and they'll say it on a camera, but they've never said it to a trusted, caring person that isn't going to judge them, but they just say it, and it's still an act. And so when I quit trying to do the act, and look, I still do. I mean, how do you know when it's an act and when it isn't? I mean, there's certain things that I still want to be able to say, and I'm hesitant to say them. But I'll tell you, when I started just sharing the stuff that I used to think people would never want to talk to me again if I talked about I slept with a hooker, or like, the shameful shit that I was dominated by, and then people would be like, thank you for sharing that. Oh, that's been really helpful. Then you realize that, wow, we all have pain. We all have angst. And if you think your life sucks, go out and find someone whose life sucks more than yours and offer to help them. And it's so interesting how better you feel. There's, a billion people on the planet right now that would do anything to switch places with any of us. Right. And so we often, I have a friend named Dave Kekich that has been paralyzed from the chest down. When he was 35 years old, he had all the trappings of what you would call success. It was in the 70s. He told me that people didn't even jog back then. It wasn't even considered yet a cool thing to jog. And he would run on Huntington Beach. He had a beach house. He's a multimillionaire. He had a convertible Mercedes, beautiful girlfriend, gets a weird spinal cord injury while he's exercising, goes to the hospital in excruciating pain. Back then, they didn't have the technology to be able to fix him, lost the use of his legs, traveled around the world for 2 years trying to find a cure. His girlfriend left him. His business partner stole all his money, and the guy's paralyzed from the chest down. And he wrote these things called Kekich Credos, and he's now in his late 70s. I'm going to introduce him to you, Ken, you got to have him on Metal. The guy's fucking fascinating. And he wrote these 100 credos about life success. And one of them was, life is seldom as bleak as it seems when it's going bad, or seldom as good as it seems when it's going well. Lighten up, you'll live longer. And, you know, I used to put so much emphasis on, oh my God, what are people going to think of me? And I still do. I mean, I've self-worth issues and self-esteem. I'm still working through that stuff, but just being able to be open about it and just focus on helping others, not on myself. It's amazing how much that has helped me.
Last thing real quick, Joe, we're out of time, but I just want to ask a very straight, direct question. Why do you help us out at Metal? Why are you, because you have stepped forward more than any other individual offering guests and ideas. What compels you to help us?
Just because I think I'm guided by baby Jesus and I'm an awesome human. No, I'm kidding. So here's my thing. Like, usefulness is not like fine china. You don't have a limited supply of love. You don't have a limited supply of usefulness. I mean, what am I going to lose unless I could turn over relationships and all of a sudden maybe I really come from a place of abundance. And it's like, if I know a bunch of people and I think that these people have good ideas and they're going to give people perspective or strategy or insight or methodology, or they're going to entertain people, and it will help other people. And having gotten known you, and you're a cool dude, and, you know, Sandy, you know, I mean, hanging out with you guys, there's something that I think would help make, like, I'm not just trying to increase my slice of the pie, I'm trying to increase the pie. And so anything that I could put out into the world that's just going to make everything better, for one, there's no downside to me. If I introduce a lot of, like, you're going to fucking be like, oh yeah, Joe's awesome, he's cool, he's helpful. And you know what, if I ever need something, but I don't do it for that though. I don't do tit for tat sort of stuff. I truly go into things and try to be useful without any agenda. And when people try to be like, oh, I'll help somebody if they do this, that's the wrong reason. That's not being useful. That's being an agenda. That's being like, so I don't give a shit if something doesn't come out of something. What I do know is that if I'm just if I'm very helpful, you know, there's going to be enough people that when I need it, you know, they're going to be there for me. And so that's why I do it. And I think it'll be helpful to these guys. And I think every person here, by the, you know, fact that they're part of this, is wanting to connect. They're wanting to better themselves. And if I know something that will help with that, I offer it. And that's what I do. That's why I do it.
Joe, I love you.
Love you too.
And I want everyone to unmute themselves. Let's thank Joe for sharing time with us in this rare few hours of sharing time with people before he goes on a sabbatical. It's an honor to have you join us. Unmute yourself, everyone, and thank Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
So much, man.
Very awesome.
Thank you, Joe. Good luck on your journey, brother.
Safe journey.
Bye, everyone.
One last request. You guys read my damn book, okay? It's
Thank
Life
you,
Gets
Joe.
There you go.
You got it.
There you go.
You got it.
Joe's free book.